So hearing impairment affects the whole family through the relations, through the feelings and emotions, through added responsibilities, and through that it affects the quality of life. Helen Keller كانت بتقول جملة حلوة قوي: blindness cuts off from things but deafness cuts off from people. لأنك لما بتسمعش ما بتعرفش تتواصل اجتماعيا مع الناس، لكن لو مش بتشوف بتعرف برضو تتكلم مع الناس اللي حواليك. Every success story starts with a dream. And honestly, I totally believe that what we can see in 2020 right now in Egypt is a dream for every family and every professional working with the hearing impairment. خصوصا الناس that worked back in the late 90s and early 2000s هيعرفوا ان اللي احنا فيه دلوقتي this is a complete shift, and inshallah for more and more shifts. So the ultimate goal of every family having a child with CI is independence. It's not talking, it's not listening, it's independence. ان انا في يوم من الايام when I grow up, لما البيرنتس دول ما يبقاش موجودين, my child will be independent. هيقدر يعيش ويعيل نفسه لوحده في مجتمع ويبقى functioning individual. So the ultimate goal of every therapist, احنا the ones who work with the CI child, is also independence. عشان كده احنا دلوقتي ما بقيناش we just talk about listening and talking. No, we talk about listening, talking, learning, occupation, everything. So this is what we aim to. So let's look at other models of rehabilitation. أنا دايما بقتنع إن the more competition, the more perfection comes. So when you have a lot of models, this is where you get more and more better outcomes. The philosophy between the learning to listen and language and spoken approaches was based on experience, on knowledge, on creativity, on insight, وطبعا on open-mindedness. Because if 20 years ago I would have said that I want the parent to teach their children to listen and talk, كنا هنتهاجم هجوم فظيع. It would have been total loss. But now this is what we want, because this is what we saw in real practical life. This is what we need. We don't have 8,000 therapists in Egypt for the 8,000 annual children diagnosed with hearing impairment. And it's an additive thing. 8,000 every year. So ما بالكم بقى احنا عندنا كام ألف واحد ما عندناش therapists يكفوا. So the vision of the auditory verbal therapy was to bring our patients into the world of hearing and make them enjoy a lifetime of listening and communicating. زي البيبي بالظبط. It's a baby model. Rehabilitation incubation model. زي البيبي لما بيدخل الحضانة والانكوبيتر يبقى في رحم أمه لغاية لما يطلع منه totally independent, listening to everything. So breaking the silence and bringing back the smile and preparing the child to be reborn once again in the world of he. وعشان كده احنا we're advocating for screening of infants عشان خاطر الولاد دول to be aided early, to be implanted early, to be listening children ما نحتاجش سنين وسنين للتأهيل. So we view the child holistically. The child is not just a set of ears, and this is very, very, very important. He's a whole child, مش مجرد ودان وخلاص. We need to help our children, وده اللي احنا نفسنا نعمله with the early implantation going on right now, and the early intervention is to develop independent, age-appropriate, functional listening, cognition, communication, academics, and social independence. لو أي حاجة من loops دي is not there, we will not achieve the most important, which is social independence. So our mission is to improve their academic life, their cognition, their motoric abilities, their social abilities, their self-help abilities, their vocational abilities, sensory integration. زي ما كانت دكتورة أميمة النهاردة الصبح بتقول إنه these children have one sensory loss, some of them have dual sensory loss, the hearing and visually impaired, and some of them have multiple sensory losses. So they need sensory. So the approach of auditory verbal therapy is now on the uprise, not just in Egypt, and not only in the Middle East, but also in North Africa. Egypt and MENA دلوقتي كل الناس فيها are thinking of the AVT because of the limited resources that we have. It overcomes many hurdles, such as financial hurdles, having tertiary centers. I'm in Cairo and my patient is thousands and thousands of miles away. في سوهاج وعلى بعد 500 كيلو عشان يروح للناس. الناس اللي في الأقصر اللي ما عندهمش مراكز غير مركز واحد دلوقتي نداء فتحاه. الناس اللي في أسوان ما عندهمش مراكز خالص. So this is going to overcome it. It's going to help those children. The AVT helps for the lack of trained professionals and personnel. The more and more we train, the multiples that we get of children with hearing impaired. You'll never have enough. But you have a parent for every child. So, to help them for mainstream inclusion and parent awareness and education. The hurdles that we face led to a lot of dropouts and poor outcomes. عشان كده احنا دايما نقول AVT helps when you have a lot of distances. And in Egypt we have a lot of distances to cover. So the hypothesis was, who is available? Where is he available? When is he available and why? مين اللي available في كل حتة مع الchild? Who is available and where? At home 24/7. When? Every day, all the time. من ساعة ما بيصحى لغاية لما بينام. Why? He knows his child the best. He gives you all the input you need for proper therapy. طبعا the argument كانت against جدا اللي هي ايه؟ Where is our role as phoniatricians and speech and language therapists? احنا كده ملناش لازمة. Loss of financial income from the cases. If I train them, I don't get them in for my clinic. Monitoring and follow up. How am I going to monitor and follow up? Not enough trained AVTs. This is the truth until now, but it's getting more and more, and the training is spreading and spreading. And that the parents are not educated enough. I bet that every one of us here know illiterate parents who have very well speaking and hearing children. It is not just the educational level, it's the commitment and the passion for the parents. فالargument with إن إحنا we assess, we train. What if the patient is away from my center? Anyway, I won't have him in for therapy. So why not train and have a therapist at home, his own parent? You need to empower parents. They need to have the power. It's their child, not yours. You need to set objectives and you need to assess for progress. This book is a great book. I highly recommend it for everyone who's interested in auditory verbal therapy. ونزل منه new version 2020. هو تبع Plural Publishing. Mr. Warren Estabrooks is our mentor in the AVT, and he is a person where يعني هو علمنا personally and professionally how to be better therapists الحقيقة. So, the more parents spoke to the children, the higher the IQ. Even after controlling كل حاجة, the children become more cognitively able when we speak to them as parents. So listening becomes a way of life, and it's naturalistic and it's holistic because it's through doing everything in the daily life. In the AVT, we aim at filling gaps, looking and studying the current situation, planning and finding solutions, and planning for a better future. So the families, ساعتها we give them coaching, we give them guiding, we troubleshoot, they have a shoulder to lean on, we're partners. مش أنا I just give orders and you go and do it at home. They don't know how to do it at home. But if you model, this is how they do it. Tell me and I will forget, show me I might remember, but teach me and let me do it myself, I will never forget. Okay? So the past, كان ال AVT only focusing on listening. So it's all about listening and listening. However, كل future studies of the AVT is that it's an approach that can be applied for listening, learning, speaking, everything. In AVT, you don't teach as in a hierarchy, but you teach in a continuum, like any child. All skills develop in parallel. We base our training on the acoustics, just as Dr. Dalia was saying. It's based on speech acoustics. It is very structured and very scientific. We address all this. Vocabulary, communication, suprasegmentals, play, phonological awareness, literacy. Because for a child to be literate, just as Dr. Ahmed Nabil was saying, he needs to understand, to have comprehension, to be able to listen, to be able to talk, so that he could have reading and writing. He would know what does phonology mean, what does morphology mean, for him to be able to read and write. The 10 principles of AVT, anyone who has an AVT training, he has to be examined in those 10 principles. You have to know them by heart. 6 of which starts with guide and coach parents. It is all about parents. If you're a good AVT therapist, then you know how to guide and coach parents, and you can get optimum results from the parents, not from yourself. It is an early intervention approach because it's early intervention in the age, in the diagnosis, in the amplification, and in the implantation. The knowledge that we give is through experiences with language, with hearing, with feeling, with touching, with everything. Variables affecting success, just as any other variables affect success, just as what Dr. Dalia was saying right now. The age, the cause of the hearing loss, the degree of hearing loss, all this. But however, the most important is the level of the participation of the family and the skills of the practitioner. When Mr. Warren taught us about AVT, he's like, it doesn't suit any children with additional disabilities. However, we tried it with parents with children with additional disabilities, and it works. Because they stay more and more with their children, and children with additional disabilities need more and more time of intervention. So this actually works, but with the younger age. You have to know the communication styles. The children have different communication styles. He could be a sociable child, he could be a reluctant child, he could be a very passive child, and he could be an own agenda, a stubborn child. You need to know how does he communicate, and you can play with different roles. You can help, you can be the timekeeper role, you can be the director role, you can just be an observer. You pick the role according to the communication style. You inform the parent, you model, and you observe for the development. The nature of the AVT, it is tailor-made. It's individualized. I cannot put a plan for 5 children at the same time. And it cannot be a group therapy. It's usually a one-on-one therapy with one child and one family, or one parent or 2 parents. It provides ongoing assessment. Variables you have to put, it's for weekly hours, 1 hour every week. 90 minutes if you want to put your admin work as well. You have to have your short-term objectives, and you have to have your long-term goals. 6 goals, which are for every AVT session, which you can play with the strategies around, are creating a listening environment. This room is not a very good listening environment because of the door open, because of the room acoustics, because of a lot of things. So you have to create a good listening environment. You have to facilitate auditory attention by using some cues like what Dr. Ahmed said, like the auditory hooks, like the acoustic highlightings. You need to enhance auditory perception of speech sounds. You need to promote knowledge of language, facilitate spoken language and cognition, and stimulate independent learning. We don't prompt. We don't keep on prompting and prompting. We want them to be independent. We don't want them to be prompt dependent. These are the goals. We follow developmental hierarchies. We look at the chronological aid. We put short-term objectives, and the most important word here is the yellow one down there, the zone of proximal development by Vygotsky. Zone of proximal development is, don't set too high goals so the child will be frustrated. Don't set too low goals so the child will not develop. Just set your goals a little bit ahead of the child's current level. This is the zone of proximal development, and I think that this is the key to the success. The AVT cycle بتمشي دايما في session cycle. What I love about this is that you can see AVT all over the world. AVT in India, AVT in China, AVT in Canada, and AVT in the Middle East. This is Wafa. She's a Lebanese AVT practitioner. She was one of our colleagues in the courses. So AVT can apply it everywhere, multicultural, just adapt it to your culture and go on and work. If you want to lower your bar, raising the bar and lowering the bar means going up the ladder of being a more professional and experienced in AVT, or lowering the bar and just work عادي زي السيشنز بتاعتنا. If you want to lower the bar, then put in too much talking. Don't wait for the child. Play around with excessive acoustic highlighting and muzzeries and parenties. كده. No natural conversation. The parent will be totally uninvolved. He could be sitting outside or just observing you. And don't use your natural voice. However, if you want to raise the bar, less talking, less noise, more waiting, more conversation, more involved parent, and use a natural voice. This is the session cycle. You state your objectives, you explain the activities, you demonstrate, pass on, observe, and coach. You should have waited some more here. You should have raised the bar here. You should have used this strategy here. So the top 5 parent coaching strategies are having conversation and sharing information. Parents like to talk about their experiences with their own children. Don't just give them orders. Collaborating and setting goals and planning activities. Demonstrating, providing guided practice. Don't give 10 objectives. Give 1 and guide. Give 1 and guide. Provide video feedback. Ask the parents to bring videos over from what they do at home so we can both talk about it and work on it. So the AVT key strategies, these are the things that you should take home with you today, is creating a good listening environment, using some muzzeries but not too much, Speaking within the earshot of the implant itself. You have to lean and speak close to the child. Observe, wait, and listen. Singing is a very good acoustic highlighting that you can use. Visual distractors. We don't use the hand cue anymore, but we can use visual distractors. Like you want him to listen, you can say, look, and then you can talk. So he will be visually distracted or use a toy, and he will just listen naturally. Repeat and repeat and repeat. Use auditory hooks. سامع؟ إيه ده؟ This is a hook. You're hooking on the listening process. Listen. You can ask him to listen. اسمع. Listening first and last. We don't use the terminology of auditory sandwich anymore that much in the AVT. It's used everywhere, but the AVT, they don't like it that much. So we use listening first and listening last. Whispering is one of the acoustic highlightings. Waiting, waiting. Praising the child. Expanding on what he's saying. Pause. Wait. Rephrase. Scaffold. If he doesn't understand the first time you say, you can rephrase what you're saying. You can chunk. You can just use another way of questioning. Model. Self-statements like, I like eating this. I think we should do this. Because the child will speak about himself as a self-statement. So you also have to use self-statements. You have to supervise and audit what's going on daily through the parents write down daily reports. ممكن يبعتوا لك live streaming. Filing, you have to have very proper filing. You have to screen for progress. You have to update your objectives all the time, and you have to track how is your coaching effective. Is it effective enough, or do you need to modify your coaching strategies? So just as the alphabet used to be the apple and the bat and the cat, now it's Apple and Bluetooth and chat and download. It's a future way, and you need to just think outside the box. So telepractice, AVT suits the telepractice, suits that you can be working on AVT objectives and strategies for someone in a different town, in a different country حتى. So is it fitting for additional disabilities? Well, the science and the review of literature, not much is done on this, but from clinical practice, yes, it fits. And yes, it helps parents and it empowers them. So thank you for listening, and I hope I gave you a little bit of briefing on AVT.